This is podcast psychology. What if the main reason, for your emotional suffering is something simple but maybe overlooked? That maybe you've just stopped choosing yourself.
Mm.
Think about it. All that energy you pour into other people,
Mm.
always being available, saying yes when, deep down, maybe you want to say no.
Yeah, that reflex to agree.
Exactly. And it's interesting, Carl Jung actually saw that kind of relentless self-neglect.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't see it as love. He saw it more like self-harm in a way.
A subtle form, yeah.
So in this deep dive, we really want to get into that. Why does ignoring yourself, your own individuality, lead to so much unhappiness? And maybe more importantly, how do you start to break free? By the end, you might actually see some of your own patterns a bit differently.
Hopefully.
So here's something to think about as we start. Can you actually pinpoint a time when you stopped being you, not the friend, the parent, the colleague, but, the core you?
It's often not obvious, is it?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Tends to get buried under layers and layers of expectations.
And what's fascinating is how subtly that happens. It often starts way back, right? Childhood.
Yeah.
Well, think about all the messages we get growing up about who we should be.
Oh, constantly.
It's like this constant drip feed, isn't it? How to act, what to say, how to get approval.
Approval. That's key.
Definitely. And that conditioning, it sort of trains us almost unconsciously to look outside ourselves for validation. We start prioritizing that over our own inner compass.
Right. And so almost without noticing, bit by bit, we start building this persona, you could say.
Yeah, a mask.
We show the parts we think people will like, the acceptable bits, and we kind of hide the rest. The parts that feel too different, maybe too sensitive, too loud to us.
It really is like playing a role. The good friend, the responsible employee, the easygoing partner.
But what's the cost? What's happening underneath when you live like that, when it feels, well, inauthentic?
Well, if you connect that to, your actual well-being, the internal consequences can be pretty significant. A lot of people talk about this feeling of emptiness, maybe feeling a bit lost, like they're living someone else's life.
Yeah, like it doesn't quite fit.
Exactly. It's like being stuck playing a character in a script you didn't write. There's this constant disconnect, between what's inside and what you show outside.
Yeah, feeling of disconnect.
Yeah.
The resonance. And it really brings us to Carl Jung again and his idea of individuation. That sounds like the journey back to yourself, right?
It is, essentially.
How can we kind of grasp that idea practically?
Well, Jung used this really helpful analogy. Imagine yourself at birth like a complete puzzle. Every piece is there, unique, fitting perfectly. You're just whole, authentic.
Okay, yeah. I can picture that. A complete, unique image. So what happens? What breaks that wholeness?
Over time, like we were saying, certain pieces of that original puzzle, parts of your personality, your natural inclinations, your feelings, they start getting pushed aside. Because we pick up these messages, maybe spoken, maybe just implied, that those parts aren't okay. Don't be so sensitive. Be more realistic. Stop being so dramatic.
Things we hear all the time.
Right. And so gradually, these really vital parts of who you are get suppressed. They're not gone, but they're hidden away.
So individuation. It's basically finding those lost puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
Putting yourself back together.
Exactly that. Individuation is that very personal journey, that conscious effort to reclaim those parts you've disowned, to become whole again.
Wow.
It's about shedding the layers of what others expect, the roles you've been playing, and getting back to who you fundamentally are underneath it all.
That sounds like a really big deal, a profound process. But finding those lost pieces, reclaiming them, that can't be easy, right? There must be challenges.
Oh, absolutely. And that brings up a really crucial point about what you actually encounter on this path.
Which is?
To really get those authentic parts back, you inevitably have to face the things you rejected in the first place. And that usually means consciously letting go of the persona.
The persona.
Yeah.
That's the social mask, right? The face we put on for the world.
Exactly. The curated version of ourselves we think we need to fit in, to be accepted, to navigate social situations smoothly. It's often a performance, like you said.
Yeah, makes sense.
And as you start to loosen your grip on that persona, that managed image, something else tends to emerge from, the unconscious depths.
Okay.
Something we've often tried very hard not to look at, our shadow.
The shadow. Okay, that sounds intense. What exactly is the shadow in Jung's view?
Think of it like a mirror. It reflects back everything you've sort of shoved into the basement of yourself. Your old wounds, maybe anger you never expressed, desires you forgot you had, dreams you gave up on.
Right.
But here's the important bit. The shadow, for Jung, isn't just the bad stuff in a moral sense. It's not just your flaws. No, it's everything you've repressed because somewhere along the line you learned it wasn't acceptable. Maybe you were afraid of being judged or afraid you wouldn't be loved if you showed that part.
So it could be positive things too, like creativity or ambition, if those were frowned upon.
Absolutely. It's anything and everything we decided, consciously or unconsciously, wasn't okay to be or feel. And the driving force behind burying it is usually fear.
Fear of rejection, fear of not belonging.
Precisely. We basically decide, this part of me shouldn't exist. But the thing is, the shadow doesn't just vanish.
It sticks around.
It stays active deep down, and it influences our lives in ways we often don't realize.
How? Like, how does this hidden stuff actually show up day to day?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting and sometimes, honestly, a bit painful to see. The unacknowledged shadow often trips us up.
In what way?
Think about why some people keep ending up in the same kind of unhealthy relationships, or why they repeat certain mistakes at work or with money, or why it's so incredibly hard for so many of us to say no, to set boundaries, to actually put our own needs first for a change.
Okay.
Very often, the hidden shadow is pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Can you give an example? Make it a bit more concrete.
Sure, imagine someone who's always been the nice one,
Hmm.
super accommodating, always puts others first, maybe prides themselves on never causing trouble.
Okay, I know the type. Maybe I have the type sometimes.
Right, so they say yes constantly, even when they're exhausted or resentful because they're terrified of disappointing people.
Yeah.
But underneath that niceness, there might be this huge reservoir of suppressed anger, frustration, resentment. It just builds and builds.
Yeah.
And then maybe it explodes unexpectedly over something small. Or maybe it manifests as chronic fatigue or anxiety or just this inability to stand up for themselves. They might even be confused by it. Where did that anger come from?
Right, because they don't recognize it as their own.
Exactly. That's the shadow, the buried anger, the unmet needs finally making itself known because it's been ignored for too long.
Wow. So it's like every time we ignore what we really need or feel, we're kind of feeding that shadow, making it stronger.
In a way, yes. You're creating this internal conflict. You're trying to maintain an outer image, the persona, that's completely out of sync with your inner reality. And that conflict, that's a huge source of suffering.
Okay, that makes sense. It sounds quite negative, though. Is there another way to look at the shadow?
Absolutely. And this is a really crucial shift in perspective. The shadow isn't the enemy. It's not some evil part of you.
No.
Think of it more like a messenger, a really important wake-up call.
A wake-up call.
Yeah, it shows you exactly where you've abandoned yourself, where you've stopped choosing you. And it's pushing you, really, to start prioritizing yourself again, to stop looking outside for approval all the time.
So instead of being scared of it, we should maybe listen to it, see what it's trying to tell us.
That's exactly the idea. Acknowledging it is the first step, and that ties directly into this whole idea of prioritizing yourself.
Right, which feels, well, that often feels selfish, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's guilt involved.
Oh, absolutely. If you feel a twinge of guilt just thinking about putting your needs first, that's probably years, maybe decades, of conditioning talking.
How so?
We're taught, often quite subtly, that being selfless is the highest good, that sacrificing yourself for others is noble, it's love. And the flip side is that looking after yourself is, well, selfish.
Yeah, it's baked into so many stories, cultural ideas.
Yeah.
The martyr complex.
It really is. But think about a candle. If it just burns and burns to light the way for others, what happens eventually?
It burns out. There's nothing left.
Exactly. No light for anyone. It's the same with us. If we constantly drain our own energy, emotional, mental, physical, for everyone else, we eventually hit empty. We have nothing left to give, not to others and certainly not to ourselves.
You can't pour from an empty cup. I've heard that before, and it makes so much sense.
It's simple, but profound. You can only genuinely give what you actually have. How can you offer real support if you're running on fumes? How can you love fully if you feel depleted inside? Think about the safety briefing on an airplane. What do they always tell you about the oxygen masks?
Put your own on first before helping others.
Right. And why? Because if you pass out from lack of oxygen, you're no help to anyone.
It's pure logic. So looking after yourself isn't selfish. It's actually necessary if you want to be able to help others effectively in the long run.
Precisely. It's about ensuring you're strong enough, stable enough, resourced enough to actually show up for people meaningfully.
But it's still hard. We worry about what people will think, right? Judgment, rejection, maybe even losing people we care about.
That fear is very real. But here's something to hold on to. The people who truly love and value you, they will ultimately love and respect you more when you're being authentic, when you honor your own needs, when you set healthy boundaries. They want the real you, not the burnt out, resentful version.
Okay, so let's get practical. How do we actually start doing this? How do we begin to reclaim ourselves, make ourselves a priority, especially if we've spent years doing the opposite?
Yeah, it's definitely a process, not an overnight fix. It takes courage, it takes patience, you're undoing years of conditioning. But Jung's ideas give us a starting point, and often it begins simply with introspection.
I think about it.
More like actively turning inward, making some quiet time for yourself, and asking a really fundamental question. Who am I, really? Beyond the roles, beyond the expectations.
That sounds simple, but I bet it's quite powerful, maybe even a bit scary.
It can be. It can definitely stir things up. Forgotten feelings, buried desires might surface. Answering it honestly means being willing to look at the parts of yourself you've pushed aside.
How can you help that process along?
One really effective tool is introspective writing, journaling.
Oh, okay.
But not just writing about your day. Really allow yourself to write freely, no filter. Explore your fears, what makes you angry, what you secretly long for. As you put words to that inner world, you start to see more clearly what you've sacrificed, what you've suppressed to try and fit in or get approval.
So understanding is the first step. But that understanding has to lead to something, right? You can't just journal about it forever. You have to actually do something differently.
Absolutely critical. Insight without action doesn't change much. And one of the biggest, most impactful actions is learning to say no.
Uh-oh. The dreaded no.
Exactly. Saying no to things that don't feel right, saying no to unrealistic demands, saying no to relationships or interactions that consistently drain you.
Why is that so hard?
Well, like we said, conditioning. We're often trained to be agreeable, to please others. We worry about letting people down, looking selfish, maybe facing conflict or rejection.
But we just keep saying yes, even when it hurts us.
Yes, we take on too much, tolerate things that chip away at our well-being, stretch ourselves so thin, trying to be everything to everyone except ourselves. But here's a crucial reframe. Every time you say yes to someone else, when you really mean no, you are essentially saying no to yourself, to your own needs, your own energy, your own priorities.
Wow, but like that, it changes things. Saying no isn't being mean or difficult. It's actually self-respect.
Exactly. It's a profound act of self-respect. It's not about attacking the other person. It's about honoring your own limits. It's a declaration that your needs matter too.
So it's not just about saying no randomly. It's about pausing first.
Yes. Learning to pause before you automatically respond. Check in with yourself. Ask, do I genuinely want to do this? Do I have the energy? Or am I feeling obligated or scared of the consequences of saying no?
Taking that moment to listen to yourself before reacting.
Precisely. And it's not just our thoughts we need to listen to, is it? Our bodies have a lot to tell us too.
Ah, right, the physical sensations.
Yes. We often live so much in our heads, analyzing everything, that we lose touch with our body's wisdom. But your body often knows something isn't right long before your mind catches up.
Like that knot in your stomach. Or sudden tiredness.
Exactly. That wave of fatigue when asked to do one more thing, the tension in your neck and shoulders, the anxiety bubbling up, these are signals, important data.
So we need to learn to tune back into those signals.
We need to relearn how to listen, to pay attention to those subtle or not so subtle physical cues. Trust your gut feeling. Recognize those warnings before they turn into burnout, chronic stress, or deep resentment.
And how do we do that? How do we reconnect?
Practices like mindfulness, meditation can help quiet the mental noise. Gentle movement like yoga or stretching, even just taking a few conscious breaths throughout the day can help you tune back into your physical sensations, your intuition.
So it's all part of this journey of prioritizing yourself.
It is. And ultimately, prioritizing yourself isn't about becoming some perfect, idealized version of who you think you should be. It's about finding and embracing who you actually are.
The authentic self we started with.
Exactly. It's a gradual return. But every time you set a boundary, every time you honor your no, every small act of self-care, it builds that muscle of self-respect. You start to realize your worth isn't based on what others think or how much you do for them.
It's inherent.
It's inherent. It's just there because you exist. And recognizing that, truly feeling that, well, that's where the real healing begins.
And it sounds like a core part of that healing is realizing nobody else is going to do this for you.
Right.
You can't wait for permission.
That's the absolute crux of it. No one is coming on a white horse to rescue you from yourself, from your old patterns. You, and only you, can make the conscious choice to change. To decide that your needs matter. Your desires are valid. Your feelings deserve attention. There's no external authority that can grant you the right to be fully yourself.
That power is internal.
It resides entirely within you, and only you can choose to claim it. True healing, real change, it starts the moment you grasp deep down that you are your own primary responsibility, your own priority number one.
And that's not selfish.
It's not selfish. It's a return to your own intrinsic value. For so long, maybe you've unconsciously believed your worth came from pleasing others, from being needed, from getting that external pat on the back. But the truth is, your worth was always there. Maybe just waiting for you to finally see it.
That feels, yeah, really empowering. A big shift.
It really is. And look, it's important to acknowledge this journey isn't always easy. There will be bumps.
Doubts.
Doubts, definitely. And maybe resistance from people around you who are used to the old you, the one who always said yes.
Yeah, changing the dynamic can be tricky.
Some people might not understand. They might not support your new boundaries or your focus on yourself. But you have to remember, this is your journey. Your well-being is ultimately your responsibility.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what are the key things you hope people take away from this conversation?
Well, I think it's understanding how easily we get conditioned to forget ourselves, right?
Yeah.
To put everyone else first, build that persona, and push vital parts into the shadow.
Yeah.
And recognizing that Jung's idea of individuation, becoming whole, is so crucial. It means listening to your feelings, your body, set our boundaries, learning to say no not out of spite, but out of self-respect, and realizing that prioritizing yourself isn't selfish. It's actually essential for your well-being, and ironically, for being able to genuinely show up for others, too. You have to fill your own cup first.
Right. So maybe as you go about your day after listening, just take a moment, pause,
Yeah.
and ask yourself that simple question. What do I truly want right now?
Yeah.
And maybe the harder part,
Yeah.
actually dare to listen to the answer. Give yourself permission to hear it, to honor it. Because like we've discussed, that really is where healing and living a life that feels like your own truly begins.
And maybe think about one small thing, just one tiny step you could take today, purely for yourself. Something that puts your needs first, just for a moment, without asking anyone else if it's okay. That small act, it might just be the most important thing you do all day.